My wife banned me from the family table in front of everyone. This day is for my mother, not for you to embarrass this family. I quietly packed my bags and left. 1 week later, everything collapsed. The room went silent the moment she said it. Not the polite silence of a dinner table. The kind of silence that cuts. Forks stopped halfway to mouths. Someone's glass clinked softly against the table. My wife didn't look angry. She looked irritated, like I was a stain she'd just noticed on a white tablecloth. "This day is for my mother," she said, her voice sharp enough to slice through the room. "Not for you to embarrass this family." A few people shifted in their seats. Her sister looked down. Her father stared at the table like the wood grain was suddenly fascinating. And me? I just sat there, still holding my fork, still breathing, still processing how a woman I had loved for 10 years had just erased me in front of 30 people. It was her mother's birthday dinner, a long table filled with relatives. Laughter, wine, music, family, except apparently I wasn't part of it anymore. "You're making everyone uncomfortable," she continued, quieter now but colder. "Maybe you should go." A small smile touched her lips. Not cruel, just dismissive, like removing a chair from a crowded room. I looked around once. 30 faces. No one spoke. No one defended me. My wife had already decided the verdict, and everyone else had agreed. So I stood up. Slowly, calmly, I placed the fork beside the plate, straightened my jacket, and walked out without saying a single word. Behind me, the music started again. The laughter returned. Dinner continued, as if I had never been there, but something inside me had already begun shifting. Not anger, not yet, something colder. Because that moment was the first piece of a puzzle I didn't even realize I had been solving for months. I packed my bags that night, quietly, methodically, like a man preparing for a trip he had already accepted. My wife didn't come home until after midnight. She smelled like wine and expensive perfume. Her mother's house was only 15 minutes away. Yet somehow the celebration had lasted 6 hours longer than the dinner. She stepped inside and froze when she saw the suitcase. "You're being dramatic," she said immediately. No apology, no hesitation. Just irritation. I zipped the bag. The sound echoed through the hallway. "You humiliated me tonight," she continued. "Do you even realize that?" I looked at her for a long moment, trying to remember the woman I married, trying to find her somewhere inside this stranger. "I embarrassed you?" I asked quietly. Her jaw tightened. "You brought up that inheritance thing in front of everyone." That. 3 weeks earlier, her father had mentioned rewriting his will. A casual comment. But tonight at dinner, I had asked a simple question. Is the house going to be divided between all 3 daughters? A harmless question, or so I thought. But the reaction had been explosive. "You made it sound like we were greedy," she snapped. I nodded slowly. The strange part wasn't the argument. Marriages have those. The strange part was the look she gave me. Not anger, fear. Like I had accidentally stepped too close to something she had carefully hidden. "You should just stay with your brother for a while," she said coldly. As if the decision had already been made. As if my place in our home had already been reassigned. I studied her face. 10 years of marriage, and suddenly I noticed things I had ignored. Her phone always face down. Late work meetings. Trips with her sisters that I was never invited to. Little details. Small fractures in a story I had never questioned. Until tonight. "You're right," I said quietly. Her shoulders relaxed. She thought she had won. "I'll leave tonight." Relief flickered in her eyes. That was the moment something inside me finally settled. Because relief is a strange reaction when your husband walks out of the house. I picked up my suitcase, walked past her, and as I opened the door, I realized something important. The dinner table humiliation hadn't been spontaneous. It had been calculated. Which meant my wife wasn't just pushing me away. She was preparing for something. I didn't go to my brother's house. I rented a small apartment across town. Quiet, anonymous, temporary. For the first 2 days I did nothing. Just sat with the silence, replaying moments, rebuilding timelines. 10 years of marriage, and suddenly my memory started rearranging itself. 3 months ago, she had changed her phone password. 2 months ago, she had insisted we separate our bank accounts. 6 weeks ago, she had started talking about personal independence. 4 weeks ago, her father mentioned changing his will. 3 weeks ago, she stopped wearing her wedding ring at home. And 1 week ago, she kicked me out of the family dinner. Patterns. I've always been good with patterns. By the third day, I started looking, not confronting. Looking. Phone records were easy. She had always been careless with shared billing accounts. One number appeared more than the others. Hundreds of calls. Late at night, early mornings, work hours, weekends. The same number. I wrote it down. Then I searched it. The name that appeared wasn't unfamiliar. Daniel, her older sister's husband. I stared at the screen for a long time. Not shock, not disbelief, just quiet recognition. Because suddenly dozens of strange memories started aligning. Family gatherings where they disappeared together. Private jokes I didn't understand. The way her sister sometimes looked at her across the room. Not affection. Suspicion. Pain. I leaned back in the chair. My chest felt strangely calm. Like the storm had finally found its direction. But suspicion isn't proof, so I kept digging. Bank statements. Transfers. Small ones at first. Then larger. Over the last 5 months, nearly $80,000 had moved from our joint savings into accounts I didn't recognize. The accounts were under her name. But the destination? A property management company. 3 days later, I drove to the address listed on the transaction. A quiet suburban street. New construction homes. One of them had a sold sign. And parked in the driveway was Daniel's car. I didn't knock. I didn't need to, because through the front window I saw them, my wife and her sister's husband, standing in the living room, laughing, like two people celebrating the beginning of something new. Not hiding, not afraid, comfortable, familiar, like they had been doing this for a long time. I drove away slowly, and for the first time in days, I smiled, because now the dinner table made sense. The humiliation, the sudden anger, the push to remove me from the house. They weren't just having an affair. They were building a new life, using my money, inside a house they planned to move into after the divorce. And the inheritance question at dinner, that must have scared them. Because if her father divided the estate equally, their financial plan collapsed. I leaned back in my seat, exhaled slowly. Then I made one phone call. To a lawyer. Because if they were planning a quiet betrayal, they had seriously underestimated how patient I could be. The report arrived 6 days later. A thick folder. Cold. Precise. Evidence always is. Photos. Phone logs. Financial transfers. Property records. Surveillance timestamps. My lawyer placed it on the table and looked at me carefully. Are you sure you want to confront them like this? I nodded once. Yes. Because truth is a strange weapon. You don't need to swing it hard. You just need to place it where everyone can see it. That night I drove back to her parents' house. Another family dinner. Apparently they had many of those. The moment I walked through the door, the room froze again. My wife stood up immediately. You're not welcome here. Her voice was sharper this time. Less confident, because she hadn't expected me back so soon. Her mother frowned. Her father looked confused. Daniel went pale. I placed the folder on the table. Slowly, calmly. No speeches, I said quietly. I just thought everyone should see this. My wife crossed her arms. What is this supposed to be? I opened the folder, turned the first photograph toward them. Her face, Daniel's face, standing outside the new house, holding hands. Silence swallowed the room. Her sister's chair scraped against the floor. She stood up. Her eyes moved from the photo to her husband, to my wife. No, she whispered. Daniel didn't speak. My wife didn't move, so I turned another page. Bank transfers, property purchase agreements, phone records, 5 months, hundreds of calls, $80,000. The room felt smaller, heavier. My wife finally spoke. You were spying on me? I looked at her calmly. No, I slid the final document across the table. The property deed. Her name. Daniel's name. And the purchase date. 3 weeks before the dinner where she publicly threw me out. I was preparing for my exit, I said quietly. Daniel looked like someone had drained the blood from his body. Her sister was crying now. Soft broken sounds. And my wife? She was staring at the papers like they might disappear if she looked long enough. You don't understand, she whispered. I tilted my head slightly. Oh, I said softly. I understand perfectly. The truth didn't explode. It collapsed. Slow, heavy. I watched the room unravel piece by piece. Her sister screamed first. A raw, broken sound that seemed to rip through the walls. You said it was over, she shouted at Daniel. You promised me. Daniel couldn't even look at her. My wife tried to regain control. This isn't what it looks like. I laughed quietly. Not cruel, just tired. It's exactly what it looks like. Her father slammed his hand on the table. The sound shook the plates. You bought a house with your sister's husband. My wife didn't answer. She didn't have an answer that could survive daylight. I reached into the folder again. One last envelope. Divorce papers. Signed. Filed. Approved that morning. I thought it would save everyone time, I said calmly. My wife stared at the documents. You already filed? Yes. Her voice cracked. You're just... walking away? I looked around the table. At the broken marriage, the destroyed sisterhood, the family that had silently watched her humiliate me a week earlier. Yes. I paused, then added quietly, but before I left, I made sure to return the money you took. Her eyes widened. What? I tapped the bank statement. The house you bought? I smiled faintly. The transaction was flagged as fraud the moment my lawyer submitted the financial report. Daniel's face went white. The funds were reversed yesterday. The room went completely still. You, what? My wife whispered. That house doesn't belong to you anymore. Daniel staggered back into his chair. And the company that sold it? I continued calmly. They're suing for breach of contract. Silence, absolute silence. Because suddenly their perfect little future was gone. No house, no money, no secrets left. Just the wreckage of two families. My wife finally looked at me. Not with anger, not with arrogance, with fear. You planned this. I shrugged slightly. No. Then I picked up my coat. You planned it? I simply finished it. I walked out before anyone stopped me, before anyone asked questions, before anyone tried to apologize. The night air felt cold, clean, the kind of silence that follows a storm. I sat in my car for a long moment, hands resting on the steering wheel. 10 years. 10 years of marriage reduced to a folder of documents and a quiet conversation. Strangely, I didn't feel anger anymore, just clarity. Because betrayal isn't loud. It's quiet. It grows slowly inside everyday moments. Small lies, hidden messages, private plans, until one day you realize the life you thought you were living was never real. My phone buzzed once. A message from her. 3 words. We need to talk. I stared at it for a moment, then turned the phone off. Some conversations arrive too late to matter. I started the engine, pulled onto the empty road. And as the house disappeared in the rearview mirror, one final thought settled in my mind. A week ago, she banned me from the family table. Tonight, there wasn't a family left to sit at it.